Okay, so for this porch chat, what I wanted to go over was wintertime glider maintenance. And it's not just the glider, but we've got some downtime. So what are we going to do when we're not flying? We're in the throes of winter and we're not scuba diving in Cancun like some of our fellow pilots. So we can daydream about returning to the return of spring and summer cross-country soaring adventures. And we can do some glider maintenance and prepare for those adventures. But maintenance, it's not just limited to fixing items that broke while we were exercising gliders over the spring and summer. It's a lot more than just that. Uh, I was thinking about maintenance topics and my list, I put together a pretty good, pretty comprehensive list. It was a lot more bullet items than I thought as I was going through developing the list. So I try to schedule my annual conditional inspection for downtime. So we've got Corey coming out to Byron in February or March, and he'll do all of our club ships and the privates, and also do some basic repairs for us. And we also have to consider which type of repairs need a qualified person and sign-offs. So think about that, because there's some stuff that we can do, and there's a bunch of stuff that we can't. Uh, Transponder checks every 2 years, so we also schedule those in groups. Addressing any new ADs. So that'll be taken care of before you have your conditional inspection or as part of the conditional inspection. Also, paperwork. Check on just something to be aware of. Glider registration does require to be renewed every once in a while, so just be aware of when it's due. I keep a checklist of all the periodic items that I have to take care of. And this is one of the things on my list. Another thing it's a good opportunity, we're not flying and we want to have all of our software current and all of our avionics working in the springtime. So FLARM firmware, update that. This is not optional. When your FLARM firmware expires, it's expired. FLARM it stops working. And if my firmware isn't current, when we're flying together, even though my FLARM is on, you won't see me. So we can go to this website. I've got the URL in the presentation, and I'll share this with everybody. So this URL will take you here to the downloads. What you want to look for is I want to select for the type firmware updates, and then you have to select product. So which product am I working with? Is it the classic FLARM? Is it the PowerFlarm Core? Is it PowerFlarm? Is it the brand new PowerFlarm Fusion? So I've got a PowerFlarm Core, so I'll click on that one. Okay. So now I've selected firmware updates for PowerFlarm Core. So I've got release notes. I've got the PowerFlarm Core portable firmware version 7.0. So that'll be what I need to download. I'll click on the download, and it'll dump that on my computer. Now, what I want to show you about this is the file name includes the expiration date of the firmware. And this is something that just changed this year, thanks to a lot of feedback from the users. So if you look at the expiration date here, it's January 1st, 2099. If I go to my FLARM USB stick, has all the files that I need. It's got the FLARM configuration file. It also contains all the IGC files for the flights that I've taken. I deleted them all because they're just random noise. But here's the PowerFlarm file with the firmware, FW at the end, .fw is the firmware. These were only good for 12 months. So mine expires on January 3rd, 2025, because I put that in last year, Christmas. So now it's going to expire on 2099. I won't be flying then, so this is probably be the last firmware update I need to do, but every year it's good to check and make sure you've got the most recent version. So what I'll do is I will take this new update, drag it onto my USB stick, and delete the old one. And when I plug my USB stick into the FLARM and power up the FLARM, this will automatically download into the FLARM core unit. And now I know that I'm good. So this is something definitely everybody who's got FLARM in their glider should take care of at least once a year. And now you know that the new update this year is good for 75 years, which is plenty long enough.
So Dan, can I make a comment? So,
Please do.
so in 2020, when I had my mid-air and my FLARM wasn't working, I tried to do exactly that several times. And I think the problem is that I did it with a Mac instead of doing it with a PC. Because
Really?
I later saw on on Paul Remdy's website some stuff about FLARM, and it said that for whatever reason, if you download it with a Mac, it kind of screws up the files subtly. And when you stick your USB into the FLARM, it says it's updating. And then it comes back and it hasn't updated. So,
Wow, good to know.
right.
Thank you.
Um,
Okay, so that's the FLARM firmware. Now, if you want the ID of the targets, that's the FLARMnet update. So everyone with a FLARM, you can also register on FLARMnet. And for example, in my ClearNav, I see the targets and I also see call signs. It's Tango Golf or, Victor November, but that's in the FLARMnet database. So you can hit on this URL. It'll take you to the FLARMnet database and you can download based on what type of display you're using. So if you got avionics or butterfly display, you would pick one of these guys. You want America, Denmark, Africa, Oceania, whatever these countries are, Eastern Europe, Spain. But if you've got LXNav or Navitier, then this would be what you're looking for, iGlide or 2024 FLN. And I have ClearNav and I have XC Source. So I get this one at the bottom. So I'll click on that. And now I've got my new data file for the FLARM. So let's get so I don't need the FLARM USB. Now I'm going into ClearNav USB. So my ClearNav stick has a folder called FLARMnet, and that's where you want to put your FLARMnet database. So it's currently got the data FLN, and I loaded that June 5th, 2024. So what I want to do now is drag this new guy over here. I'm going to replace the existing one. And now I've got the current FLARMnet database. What's important about this is if someone is registered in the FLARMnet database after I upload this file, I won't see their call signs because they uploaded, after the database was, after I loaded into my glider. So it's another reason to do this before the beginning of the season, just to be current. So you're seeing all the guys that you need to see, or at least everybody who's registered. So that's FLARM and FLARMnet. Any other questions about this? That's as complicated as it is. Click, click, drag, and then put it on a stick or however you upload it into your avionics. All right, moving right along. Updating flight computers with waypoints and airports. Again, not quite as easy as the FLARM, few more clicks. So let's start with waypoints. This is the worldwide Soaring turn point exchange. The URL's in the presentation. And you start off with the whole world, and then you narrow it down, say, okay, let's say we want to do the Truckee database. Actually, let's do Williams. Okay, North America. Then we want to scroll to California. And in California, here's Williams. Click on Williams. See, it's a bunch more clicks. Scroll down a little bit. And the second one you want, files formatted for downloading and importing. That's what you want. So click the hand there to get onto those files. Now you're in the files and you start looking at, well, what type of an instrument am I uploading it onto? So do you have, let's see. So here's Cambridge Aero Instruments. That's what we used to have. I think that's what we've got in Sierra. And then I've got ClearNav here. That's what I have. There's also, let's see, some other options. Flarm, you can put the waypoints into your Flarm. Garmin, SN10, lots of options. Calibri, let's see, what others? CU, if you want to put it into CU, you got it here. And what else do we have? Volkslager, that's an ancient device. I had one of those when I bought my glider. And here's another one, XC-SOAR. So if you want to put the waypoints into XC-SOAR, you'd click on the download button here on the left, and it would give you a file. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to download XC-SOAR version. And I got a file, WSC Williams Soaring Center _16, and it's a CUP file. So if I go to my XC-SOAR data, in there, you can see here I've already got the Williams Soaring Center 16.dat file. I uploaded that January 2021. So 4 years ago, and it's still the current file. So as you go through this, sometimes you'll see that even though the file's 3 or 4 years old, it's still the current one. It hasn't been updated, so you can fly off of that. There's also different formats. If you look here, this one I'm highlighting is the DAT file. So that's the format that goes into my XC-SOAR. The next one down is a STX format. That's the format that goes into ClearNav. So as you pick a different instrument, it's going to download the type of a format file that's appropriate for your instrument. All right. Any questions about that?
Yeah, Dan, I seem to remember that for the CU database, which are also CUP files.
Yep.
I think there might be 2 types of files that
They are right here.
Yeah.
Control point number placed before the name.
Yeah, and so one works with XC-SOAR and the other doesn't, or something like that. So maybe that's why you go to the XC-SOAR thing.
Yeah, and also most of our applications work with the CUP format.
Yeah.
So if you just look for that, you're going to be good most of the time. My ClearNav needs the STX format, but just about everything else, the CUP file is going to work. Other questions or comments on this one?
Yeah, why would you want to put waypoints in your Flarm?
Some people can actually, so not at our level, but I think some of the higher level guys that are using their Flarm as a logger for badges and records, they might be putting waypoints in there. And I believe someone told me that you can actually program a task using a computer logged in, connected to your Flarm.
Okay.
So if you're real tech savvy, but that's not for most of us.
Yeah, yeah, I can see how that can be used as a backup IGC logger because Flarm is a approved logging device for badges and records.
And for that reason, I went and sent my FLARM out to be calibrated.
Yeah. My question is, just like you pointed out, the Williams file hasn't been uploaded for a long time. I always get my waypoints from the Hollister database folder because that seems to be maintained and most current. Wouldn't that be the go-to place to get waypoints instead of the Exchange, the Soaring Web?
It is for the locals. So for us local, there are sites like Hollister where they're maintaining current databases. And also Rami has created a file called the California Soaring Database for waypoints, which merges Hollister, Williams, and Truckee all into one file.
Yeah, that's
So
the one
we,
I've been using.
So
yeah,
where's that one located?
it's in the Hollister database. I don't have a link to it, but if anyone, there's old
If you go
emails
to
and
the
Rami can send
AGC,
out.
if you log into the AGC group, most of you belong probably to that list, AGC
Yeah.
group. On the left nav, there's a folder. There are different folders, and one of them says, I think, databases.
Good. So Andre, after the meeting, would you email me that link to the Hollister Soaring site, and I'll add that
Yeah.
link into my presentation.
Yes, thank you. Sure.
Yeah, so I also wanted to show you, this database file. It's not just for California, Oregon, Nevada, Washington. It's worldwide. So at the highest level, I was just playing around with this, and what was I looking for? Alberta or South Africa. Worldwide Soaring Web. Turn Point Exchange, Africa. So anyone who's planning on going to Namibia in South Africa, you can download waypoints files for South Africa. Let's see. Before you head on down there, you could probably also do a Google Earth download and see what what sites they're flying and get a map of it. Same way we just did for this. So this turn points exchange works for all over the world. Airports. Okay, so those are turn points. Now, also airports are important because in your flight computer, it's nice to have current information for the airports. Our turn point database does has basic airport information. It might give you the frequency for CTAF at an airport. It might give you the code for getting in and out through the gate. If you need to bring your trailer in, it might tell you the favored direction to land at a field nearby. But if you really want, the detailed information, get here into the U.S. Aviation Information Database, click on airports.
Does that also give you files for airspace? I see airspace. So
Yep.
if
You
there,
can also do airspace.
okay, so there's the SUA files. Okay.
Yeah. So follow this. Okay. So follow this link. Okay. We'll click on this link. So what I do is every year I'll get a brand new airports file. And the reason I do it every year is because things change. And here's an example of where things change. I did a soaring camp up to Nephi in Utah. And while we were lined up on a grid, taking off, I think we had launched 2 or 3 gliders, and the next glider was pushing out onto the threshold to hook up to the tow plane. A jet came in and landed right over the top of them, and we never heard a radio call. The reason we didn't, and he never heard us either. And the reason was he was using an old frequency. The frequency had been changed 1 or 2 years ago, and he was using the old frequency. So I like to have this airport database because the airport database gives you everything about the airport, phone numbers, who owns the airport, what the frequency is, runways, everything. So it's not everything you get when you log into the FAA database, but it's a whole lot more information than in our waypoints. And it's nice to know what the current frequencies are. So for the first box, step 1, you want to know, well, what do you want to center it on? You could center it on C83 for Byron, or you could center it on Truckee. You could center it on any airport you want. And, pick a radius. How far away from Byron are you going to fly? If you're going to fly in the Sierra, just put 500 nautical miles. And that should cover you for flying around Williams, Hollister, Truckee, Byron, the general area around here. That should be good enough. Then you skip down to what sort of a file do you want? So step 4, choose the output files. So the cut file is always included, and a cut file is pretty standard for most devices. But for ClearNav, I needed an STX format. So I'm going to click on STX because I'm going to download this into my ClearNav. And then the last step, step 5, is you have to type the word SOAR into this box, SOAR. And then you can submit it. Now it'll download the file onto your computer. So now I've got an airport's zip file. I'll extract that. So now I've got it in a CUP file and an STX file. So if I go back to my ClearNav, let's see, get back to the folder for the ClearNav. Documents. So this was on the desktop. Whoops. So I've got my ClearNav USB. And what I want to put into there, into the map data, are my airports. So that's in the waypoints folder. And you can see here I've got airports 30 November 2023. I just added this verbiage so that I would know when I uploaded that file, when I created it, when I uploaded it. So what I'll do is I'll take this file. So what I need the STX version. So I'll just rename this.
That's the cut version.
That's the cut. Thank you. I'll rename the STX version for my ClearNav. And I'll rename it 19 December 2024. Drag it in here. Get rid of the old one. And then when I plug my USB into my ClearNav, next time I power up the system, it'll look and say, are there any files in this USB stick that I haven't uploaded? And it'll ask me, do you want to upload the new file? And I'll say yes. So now we've got new waypoints and new airports files for my avionics for my glider.
So some of the waypoints, in the the waypoint file are going to be airports. So you end up with two airports.
Yes, I do. So just be aware that you are going to have that clutter in your display where you'll have 2 airports on top of each other. And when I click on them to select them, it'll show both of them, and I can toggle back and forth and get the extra information, but it does muddy up your screen. Some devices can filter that out, so it only displays one. My ClearNav doesn't. So I ended up with duplicates. but I'm okay with that because I've got the extra information.
So how do you know which one, when you're clicking one for the information, how do you know which one's the latest?
I'm just toggling back. So they'll both be current, but they're updated from different sources. So as I toggle back and forth between the two, the one that's a waypoint has the minimal information, and the one that's the airport database has the full information. So it displays a lot more. And
Okay.
that's so different purposes for the different data files. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So, I usually get the TFR with the airspaces appended to that file before each day, flying day, cross-country flying day. I don't think I ever downloaded the airports file. So would you say that the airports file is equivalent to something like the chart supplemental? And it has information that's not contained in the airspaces file?
Yes, the airspaces file is something that we'll be looking at, the day we're going to fly, because that's where you're going to look for the TFRs.
So
So the
airspaces file does not have the information like the frequencies and everything else. It just has the charts. That's all it has.
Yeah, think of the airspaces file as giving you the outlines with the limits, the boundaries. So the floor and the ceiling and the horizontal boundaries of each airspace and the type of airspace. But that's the airspace. It's not the airport that the airspace is around. And it likewise, a TFR is, a temporary airspace. And so that's why we check that the day we fly.
Thanks.
Make sense?
So how do you get the airspace files with the today's TFRs?
That's in the same location that he was showing. It's the last
Next
tab.
one. Okay.
Can you show that? Yeah, there it is.
So TFRs. So we can get, again, specify the boundary. We want to see TFRs bounding C83, and let's just put in 100 statute miles because we're not going to go very far today. And then you type soar into the box.
You also have to select the file type.
Yeah. So airspace file. So Google Earth will give it in KML format, then you can look at it.
Yeah,
SUA format. SUA is pretty standard for the instruments that I'm using. Especially, and it'll go into the SUA, the special use airspace folder in ClearNav. All right,
Okay.
thanks.
So besides the TFRs, does that also repeat like Bravo airspace and Charlie airspace?
there's a checkbox over there. See append special use ATC controlled airspace. That's it.
Okay, so then if you don't click that, you already have your ATC airspace files. And then this just gives you a second file with TFRs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Good, good, good. All right, moving right along. So now we've done FLARM, FLARMNet, waypoints, and airspace or airports. Let's talk a little bit more about maintenance. So another thing that I do in the winter, and also I'll do it in the middle of the summer, because I'm flying a lot at altitude. But in the wintertime, just like you check your batteries and your smoke detectors at home, it's also a good time to just take out the batteries and replace them in your mountain high oxygen system or any other avionics that you might have that use disposable batteries that you've used a ton of their, juice during the summer and spring. Also on your checklist, look at when your oxygen cylinder is due for a hydro test. So my cylinder is a steel cylinder, requires a hydro test every 5 years, and it's going to expire and need a new test in 2025. I have a spreadsheet, again, that lists all the maintenance activities that I need. Hydro testing the oxygen tank is also on that checklist. And the reason I have a checklist for this is because once you get your oxygen cylinder hydro tested, they're going to engrave a stamp into it with the date when it expires. But when you put that cylinder in your glider, you're not going to see that stamp again until you pull it out. So that's why I got a spreadsheet to track that. Any questions about hydro testing? Look at your cylinder, look at the requirements, because not all cylinder types have the same expiration period of 5 years or 10 years or 1 year. Check it out, do the research and figure out what's applicable to the cylinder that you got in your glider or in your club glider.
Dan, is there a preferred local facility to do hydro testing?
There are a ton of facilities, and preferred local, the preferred term is local. So I found a place down in Palo Alto. There's there are several places where you can take them. And I've just sort of been accumulating emails that list the different places where you can take your cylinders. There, I think, within 50 miles, there's probably a half a dozen places where you can take it. There's dive shops. Some dive shops will be able to hydro test. Some specialty places will be able to hydro test. I take mine down to a fire station down in Palo Alto, and they send all their oxygen tanks out and their compressed air tanks out to be tested. And I just, piggyback on them to the facility that they use. So that's one of those things where you can just send out a question email to the glider club that you're working with or to your friends, and be prepared for a ton of email responses, and you'll find out where a good local place is to go.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Trailer, don't forget the trailer. I've had more trailer accidents than glider accidents. And what I mean is I've had 2 tire blowouts on the freeway towing trailers. One of them was mine and one of them was a club glider trailer. So every year when you got some downtime, look at the brakes. I had the brake pads on my trailer when I bought it were almost worn out, so I've replaced the brake pads. Look at the tires. Check the date on the tires, not just the wear on the tires, because our tires on our glider trailers sit out in the sun all year long, and they may not go anywhere, but those tires are wearing out just from all the UV they're being exposed to. So look at the condition of your tires and look at the age of your tires. There's tribal knowledge on how often you should replace the tires, even if you don't drive them. But just something to be aware of. Tires don't last forever, even if you don't drive them. Take it. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
I was trying to find a date on Kilo Pop's tires the other day, and I couldn't find a date. I mean, I thought there was supposed to be one, but are there some tires without dates?
Did we get those tires in the US? I don't know. You're talking about an old trailer. Yeah,
No,
no, it's good.
they're not that old.
Yeah, no, I'll admit they're really hard to find sometimes, those stamps.
I'll look again.
And it wouldn't be hard to imagine worn out.
Wolf sent out in Basa chat group, he sent out a good information how to decode the number on the tire from the manufacturer to decode the age of the tire. I'll find that email and I'll forward it to you, Larry.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Because it's not
Andre.
always a date. Sometimes it's just a number and letters and everything else, and there's a way to decode it.
Yep. Good point, Andre. Next bullet, tighten any loose bolts. I didn't realize how important this was until I found a bolt that had fallen out of the hinge that the lid of my trailer opens and closes on. So the trailer is a clamshell. It's got 2 hinges on the front, one on the left, one on the right. And each of those hinges has 2 bolts holding the lid to the base. And there's a gas strut on each side that supports the weight of the trailer lid. On the right side of the trailer, both bolts were intact and fully tightened. On the left side of the trailer, it had 1 bolt in that was loose and 1 bolt was missing. And this was at Pinoche, and I was concerned that I might not be able to open or close that trailer lid and get my glider back in or out the next time. So it was a good catch. And Buzz Graves was the one who noticed. He said, "Hey, Dan, did you notice and come over here and look. Oh shit. So that was turned out to be an urgent maintenance item. So it's a good opportunity during downtime in the winter to just do a real good look-see, walk around your trailer. We walk around the glider before every flight, but walk around the trailer at least once a year and just check everything, make sure nothing's missing and everything's working. Another thing on my checklist, trailer registration. I don't have to renew the trailer registration every year. I think it's every 5 years for me, but it's on the checklist. See when your trailer registration is due for renewal. You're not flying. It's easy enough to check. Keep track of it so it doesn't, surprise you and you go, oh shit, I'm late on the registration, or it's going to happen next month. Maintenance. Okay, if you got an experimental glider, you're going to fill out what's called a form letter. And this is where we notify our local FSDO that we've got an experimental glider and where we're planning on flying it for the next year. This usually happens in December, so everyone's sending out emails. Who's the FSDO that I send out my form letter to if I'm at Hollister? And who's the one if I'm at Byron? And who's the one if I'm at Williams? Is it Sacramento? Is it Oakland? Who is it? So you'll see these emails coming out pretty soon. And this is just for experimental gliders. You don't need a form letter for certificated gliders. All required paperwork in the glider. Is it included? Is it in the glider? And is it current? So do you have the weight and balance in your glider? It's a good opportunity during downtime just to go through that folder in the glider and pull out all the papers. And is the registration, do I have the current registration in there, or is it a photocopy of one from, years and years ago that's expired? Just clean out the clutter and make sure you got all the current stuff in there and replace whatever's old. Any questions on this page? All right. Here's a good one. Unpack and repack your land out kit. So if you're flying a glider, if it's your private glider, or if it's a club glider that has a land out kit, open it up at least once a year and pull everything out, look at it. Is it still in good shape? I keep antiseptic ointment in my land out kit. So I'm looking for, as the antiseptic ointment expired, I'll throw that away and add a new one. So just look through all this stuff. You might keep spare batteries in there. Batteries don't last forever. So you might want to recycle those and put in some fresh batteries in your land out kit. This depends on what you got. Some land out kits are more extensive than others. Another thing you can do during downtime in the winter is recalibrate your flight recorders. So it's nice to know that it's calibrated before the season starts, because if you take a really awesome flight and you want to submit that one for a badge or a record, you don't have forever to turn in the calibration certificate. Andre, how long after you turn in your application do you have to get the
2
calibration
months.
certificate? 2 months?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't want to take my flight recorder out of my glider and ship it off to get calibrated if the soaring season is in prime. We're rocking and rolling. So I'll do that before it's due during downtime. So winter's a good opportunity to take care of that. And then the calibration's good for, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. I can't remember.
But
Yeah, so don't wait till the last minute. If you're planning on records and badges, do it during downtime. Here's a good one that's Dane was telling me about this, so I added this bullet: tweak your cockpit for convenience and comfort. Dane was saying, I've got this mount over here for my GoPro, and the boom mic on my glider is in this location, but it would really be a whole lot more comfortable and more functional if I moved it over here or there. So if you got any of those items that you've been sort of putting up with over the years or over your soaring season, you think, gosh, my glider experience would be a lot better if I did this or that. Downtime in the winter is a good opportunity to take care of that stuff. Anything else? So those are the items that I thought of as I was going through, my list. What do you guys think? What do you have on your list that you might want to add to that? Any comments, any thoughts?
You got to do your parachute.
There you go. Good point. Keep that in your checklist as well.
Yeah, great presentation, Dan. Fantastic. You just reminded me about a couple things that I forgot that I need to do. Um,
So here's my Excel spreadsheet. I want to share this with you just to show, this one might be more extensive than what you're thinking of, but I've got my column A is the item. B is the date it was performed, and C is the due date. So you can see here that I've got an automatic filter that if I'm past the due date, it'll be highlighted in red. So here's the Flarm firmware update. So the Flarm firmware, I put it in November 30th, 2023. So this formula says every 12 months, I'm going to update that. So I'm now past due for updating my Flarm firmware. Again, something that I'm going to do. My current Flarm firmware is version 7.22, and I think we just walked through that and uploaded the firmware that I need for my Flarm, and I think it was version 7.40. So I can now, when I load this into my glider, I'll check this checkbox, I'll put on the new date, and it'll be current again. My program letter, I filed that one last year on December 1st, so it's due to be uploaded again. Even for me, we're talking about glider maintenance, but there's also Dan Colton maintenance. My flight review. So my flight review was due December 6th of, this month. I took care of that. So now I can update this file and say, okay, well, I have my last, BFR on, what was it? I think it was on the 14th. So as I put in the new date, now I'm good until December 14th, 2026. Thank you, Larry.
You're actually good till the 31st in 2020.
That's right, because we're talking months.
Yeah.
Good through the end of the month. Replace the battery, and so I replaced the battery in the middle of the summer. So I'm due to replace the battery in my oxygen system again, but I'm not going to sweat it. I wasn't worried about that for the last couple of months because I wasn't flying my glider, and I'm just gonna make sure that it's current and I get a new battery in there before I start flying waves down here. Airframe inspection, February, so I need a conditional inspection in February, and we'll get Corey down here. Parachute repack. I just had my parachute repacked, so I'm good until the end of spring. Oxygen cylinder hydro test. I'm good until May 14th. So I'll get it hydro tested before the summer. And then upload waypoints files. So you can see I've got all this. Here's the FlarmNet. Transponder check. I'm good until year after next. Trailer maintenance. Just stuff that I did on the trailer. Repacking wheel bearings. I even write down when I replaced the tires on the trailer. And I look at, 5 years, 6 years, whatever I think is going to be my rule of thumb. So 2019 to 2026. So I put 7 years as the default for replacing the tires on my trailer. Go with whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you think is reasonable. Flarm calibration, aircraft registration, trailer registration renewal. So you can see I've got all this stuff in this spreadsheet, and this is how I'm tracking it to make sure I'm keeping everything current and up to date. And I'm not letting anything fall off the list. Any other comments from the group?
Yeah, is there anything that you do with your ballast system as far as check and maintenance? I'm asking for a friend. I'm asking because turns out that the glider I'm flying has ballast bags installed, but they were never used and installed 24 years ago. And I'm afraid what kind of squirrels I'm going to find there. So
Yeah,
I was
I'm not
wondering
even
if
gonna
that's
go
something
there.
that's that's maintained annually checked, or how do you deal with that?
If you read the, I think I saw in my glider maintenance logbook how often to pull the bags out and check them for leaks. I think once a year, pull the bags out and check them for leaks. So if we got bags, pull them out and inspect them and then put them back in. I wouldn't expect them to last forever. And I've heard stories from some people in our club who always end up just sitting on water because their bags are always leaking and they've never been able to, identify the source of the leak. So again, it's a good activity during downtime. Fill them up, cycle them, see if they're leaking.
Yeah, yeah, something like that happened to a friend during the summer in Turkey. He landed pretty wet, and that
And
changes
understand
and that
and
changes the
understand how to fill
CD.
them.
That changes the CG of a glider. I mean, it gets pretty dangerous.
Yes, it does. But understand how to check them, how to use them, and how to fill them. You don't, if you got bags, you can damage them by filling them wrong. So I'm not an expert on ballast systems. Talk to someone who is knowledgeable. And you're welcome to find someone to give a special presentation to us on ballast systems. I'd love to hear about that. Any other comments or questions on what we've been chatting about? Andre, give me that link to the Hollister database. I'll update my presentation. I'll shoot that out in an email. And this recording will be available to folks who couldn't join us tonight.
I already posted the link in our cross-country chat.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any other questions before we sign off this presentation?
Just one, Dan. Great presentation, but the most important glider maintenance in the winter, buy your wife a really nice present.
How long will she remember? I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, he's in the other room, so don't worry.
Okay, well, Andre, you can end the recording.
Dan, if you don't have any top